I always kept an extra brass key on my ring, though it hadn't opened anything important in years. It used to fit the lock on my old house in Lakewood before my husband passed, and I'd downsized into a small rental. Still, I kept that key because habits hold memories, and sometimes memories are all you have. I certainly didn't expect it to become part of the chaos that unfolded 2 Saturdays ago. My son Adam married Layla 4 years back. She was sharp, ambitious, and at least at first thoughtful. Over time, though, something shifted. She became territorial about the house, about decisions, about Adam himself. I tried not to take it personally. Every generation parents differently, I told myself. But the distance grew, small things at first. Unanswered messages, last-minute cancellations, a birthday I wasn't invited to but forgotten by accident. I kept quiet. I wanted peace, not trouble. That Saturday I stopped by simply to drop off a chipped mug that had belonged to Adam's grandmother. I'd found it wrapped in newspaper while cleaning out a closet. Layla didn't like clutter, but this wasn't clutter. It was a piece of family history. A silly little thing, maybe, but meaningful. Grandma Joy drank peppermint tea from it every morning, humming the same 3 lines of an old tune. I thought Adam might want it. When I pulled up, kids from down the street were pedaling bicycles through the cul-de-sac. Their screen door stood ajar. I knocked lightly and called out, "It's just me," something I'd said 100 times. Layla appeared in the entryway like I'd startled her. She crossed her arms fast, her sea blue scarf hanging loose over a sweatshirt. "You can't just walk in. We've talked about this," she said, though we never had. I blinked. "Honey, the door was open." I knocked. She exhaled loudly. "What do you need?" I held out the mug. "Found this and thought Adam might." "That's exactly what I'm talking about," she snapped, her voice rising. "You're always bringing things over, inserting yourself into our space. You don't respect boundaries." My stomach dropped. A couple walking their dog slowed, glancing over. "I didn't mean to intrude," I said quietly. "Just thought he'd like it." "It's just junk," she muttered, then louder. "You can't keep doing this. Adam and I have enough stress without you showing up whenever you feel like it." I felt my cheeks burn. People were openly staring now. I set the mug on the small table beside the door. My hand shook slightly. "I'm sorry you feel that way. I never meant." "Of course you didn't," she said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "You just don't think. You create problems, then act innocent." Something in me wilted. I thought of the fridge magnet proverb I'd had since the 80s. Truth doesn't need volume, only clarity. I wanted to say it aloud, but my throat felt tight. I stepped back, ready to leave, because I'd always been taught that arguments at the doorway turn into storms inside the house. Just then Adam came down the stairs. "What's going on?" he asked, looking from her to me. "She barged in again," Layla said. "I've asked her to stop." My son frowned. "Mom knocked." I heard her. "You heard wrong," she shot back. "And we've talked about this. You just don't listen." I could see Adam tense. Something silently passed between them, something practiced. My heart squeezed. I didn't want to be the cause of anything. "Adam," I said softly, "I'll head home." "No," he started, but Layla turned toward him sharply. "Let her go," she said. "She needs to learn to respect the rules." My jaw trembled. I nodded, embarrassed, humiliated, wishing I could evaporate. Then her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. "Work," she muttered. "I have to take this." She stepped outside onto the porch, pacing. Something tugged at me, not curiosity, but a feeling, like something important was about to slip through a crack in the floorboards. Adam whispered, "Mom, I'm sorry." She's been stressed. I forced a smile. "It's all right." But then Layla's voice drifted back inside, louder than she meant. "I told you I'd stall him," she said. "He bought the story, don't worry. As long as his mother looks like the problem, the audit won't loop back to us." My body froze. Audit? Loop back. To us? Adam heard it too. His head snapped toward the door. The kids outside had stopped writing. Even the dog-walking couple paused again. "I'm already setting up the paper trail," she continued. "The ledger margin doodles won't matter. They'll think she misunderstood the numbers. She always does." My knees went weak. Me. She was talking about me. Once the clean audit is filed, she said, he'll sign. We're in the clear. Adam stepped out to the porch, the door still wide open. Layla, he said, voice firm, what audit? What are you talking about? She spun around, startled. It's not what it sounds like. But her phone was still on speaker. The person on the other end said, Did he hear you? Loud enough for all of us. Adam stared at her like he didn't recognize her. You said Mom caused the mix-up with the charity funds. You said she read the numbers wrong. She did. Layla snapped, then quickly corrected herself. I mean, she could have. It's an easy mistake. No, he said quietly. Stop. I gripped the doorframe to steady myself. My heart pounded, not just from the betrayal, but from the sudden clarity. The ledger from the community charity I volunteered with. She'd asked to help organize it. Then a month later, the treasurer called, confused about missing receipts. I had blamed myself, thinking maybe I'd misplaced something. But I hadn't. Layla hung up the call abruptly. The silence afterward felt heavy. Explain, Adam said. She folded her arms. You don't understand how these things work. It's just paperwork. I was fixing an issue before anyone panicked. Your mom shouldn't be involved in finances at her age. Stop, Adam said again. His voice cut through the air like a cold wind. You humiliated her at the door. And now you're talking about setting up a paper trail? Against my mother? She stammered. It wasn't serious. It sounds serious, he said. Very serious. I swallowed hard. My hands trembled, the brass key on my ring tapping softly against the doorframe like it wanted to warn me. Or maybe remind me I wasn't losing my mind, that this wasn't my fault. Neighbor after neighbor was watching now. Not openly hostile, but the sort of quiet attention people give when something real is unfolding. Layla suddenly pointed at me. She was going to ruin everything. She always meddles. She never follows directions. I thought if she took the blame, the board wouldn't investigate our end. Adam just stared. You wanted my mother to take the fall for you? I didn't speak. I couldn't. My throat felt like it had gravel in it. Layla stepped back, her eyes darting. I was protecting us. You said we needed the money. I said we needed to budget, he corrected, voice low. Not commit fraud. Her face twisted. Oh please. You always defend her. That's my mother, he shouted, louder than I'd ever heard. Then softer. And she's the only one here who has never lied to me. My breath shook. The chipped mug still sat on the table beside us, sunlight catching the little crack down the side. A family piece I brought with innocence, only to be nearly thrown back at me. Adam turned to me. Mom, please don't leave. I need to sort this out. But I was suddenly aware of every eye on us, and humiliation wrapped itself around me again. I'll go, I whispered. You handle what you need to. He looked torn, scared even, but nodded. I walked to my car, the brass key cool against my palm, the mug's chipped edge lingering in my mind. I didn't say another word. Didn't cry until I pulled around the corner. I didn't know then that the fallout from that single phone call would reveal more than any of us expected. I just knew that something had shifted, deeply, irreversibly, and that the truth, once spoken aloud, rarely goes back to sleep. And the truth was fully awake now. I didn't go straight home. I parked at Millbrook Park, the same place Adam used to practice Little League when he was small. The fields were empty now, just a late autumn breeze pulling leaves across the grass like slow-moving confetti. I sat there gripping the steering wheel until the imprint of it pressed into my palms. My whole body felt stiff, as if humiliation had settled into my joints. My phone buzzed 3 times before I finally answered. It was Adam. Mom, please pick up, he'd said in the earlier voicemails. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. When I finally answered, his voice cracked. Where are you? Just clearing my head, I said. Can I come to you? Please. I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to see him, I always wanted to see him, but because he sounded shaken the way he used to sound after scraping his knee too deep or missing the school bus and panicking. He was 36 now, but that tone hadn't changed. All right, I said softly. I'm at the park. He arrived 10 minutes later, pulling up beside me. His eyes were red, his hair messy from running his hands through it. He didn't even bother knocking on my window. He opened the passenger door and slid in like he belonged there, which he always had. "Mom, I'm so sorry," he whispered. I wanted to tell him it wasn't his fault, but my voice didn't work at first. When it finally did, the words came out thin. "You didn't humiliate me." "She did." He nodded slowly, staring ahead at the empty baseball diamond. "She told me for months that you'd made mistakes with the charity funds. She said you mixed up receipts. She said you'd misread handwritten entries. She even showed me doodles in the ledger margins and said you'd scribbled over numbers." My chest tightened. I remembered those doodles, they weren't mine. Little swirling loops with hearts at the end of the lines. I couldn't have drawn them if I tried. My handwriting turned shaky after my surgery 10 years ago. Every number I wrote looked like it was balancing on one leg. "I kept asking her why you were working on it without me," he continued. "But she said she volunteered to help you and didn't want to burden you with more details." "She never volunteered to help," I whispered. "She asked to take the ledger just for the weekend. I thought she was being helpful." I swallowed. I trusted her. He scrubbed his face with both hands. "Mom, the board called her last month. They asked why receipts didn't match the totals. She told them you'd been handling most of it and got confused." He looked like he wanted to sink into the seat. I believed her. I put a hand on his arm. People believe the ones they love. That's human. He shook his head. "No, Mom. That's naive. I should have checked. I should have asked you." "You had no reason to doubt her," I said gently. "Not until today." He exhaled shakily. "When she said on the phone that you'd misunderstood the numbers, I thought maybe she was just venting. But then she said paper trail. And stall him. And then, once the clean audit is filed." His voice cracked again. "She wasn't fixing anything. She was covering herself." A silence settled between us, thick but not empty, full of truths rearranging themselves. I finally managed, "Adam, what happens now?" He blew out a breath. "I don't know. But I'm not letting her blame you." I told her that. She got defensive. Started shouting that you never liked her. That you were trying to come between us. He rubbed the back of his neck. "She packed a bag and left. Said she was going to her sister's." I stared at him. "She left you? After all that?" "She yelled that I only cared about protecting you, and that she'd fixed the audit herself before someone else made it worse." He leaned his head back against the seat. "I didn't even know there was an audit until today." A gust of wind swept a pile of leaves against the side of my car. For a moment we both watched them scatter. My voice softened. "Adam, is there a chance she made a mistake and panicked?" He hesitated. "Maybe. But the phone call, that didn't sound like panic. That sounded like planning." I didn't want to believe he was right, but the words she'd said, "The audit won't loop back to us," kept replaying in my mind like they were etched there. After a long pause, Adam said, "Mom, I need you to come with me to the charity office tomorrow. We have to tell them what happened." "Adam. Please. I can't walk in there alone." His voice had the tremble of a boy asking for reassurance before a dentist appointment. I squeezed his hand. "Of course I'll go." He nodded, shoulders relaxing a little. For the first time since I'd left the house, I felt my heart beat slow. But it didn't last long. Just as we were about to leave, Adam's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number flashed on the screen. He frowned and handed it to me. "Tell your mother to stop talking. She doesn't know what she's doing. The board won't protect her when this blows up. No signature. No name." But the tone was unmistakably Layla's, cold, clipped, and full of arrogance. My stomach flipped. "She thinks I'm the threat." Adam clenched his jaw. "No. She thinks you're the easiest person to blame." He tapped a quick reply. "Do not contact my mother again." A moment later, another text came in. "Then control her." I felt something inside me break. Not sadness, not anger. Something older, deeper, like the release of a long-held breath. I wasn't weak. I wasn't confused. And I definitely wasn't going to let someone rewrite the truth of who I was. "Adam," I said quietly, "I'm not going to hide anymore." He nodded like he understood exactly what I meant. When he drove me home, he insisted on walking me to the door. I handed him the chipped mug. Take this, I said. Please. Just keep it safe for now. He held it carefully, as if suddenly aware of its history. I will. Before he left, he said something I wasn't expecting. Mom, when you were standing there at the doorway, and she was yelling at you, I saw your face. I'll never forget it. His voice was barely a whisper. I won't let her do that again. When he drove away, I stood inside my small rental for a long moment, listening to the quiet. I glanced at my fridge where that old magnet still hung crookedly. Truth doesn't need volume, only clarity. I touched it lightly. Tomorrow would bring questions, hard ones. The board would want explanations. The audit team might get involved. Layla would likely spin things, twist words, blame stress, blame me, blame whoever she could. But tonight, I washed my face, made chamomile tea, and sat at the kitchen table with my fingers curled around the warm mug. The brass key on my keyring tapped faintly with each movement. For the first time in years, it felt less like a relic and more like a reminder. I had unlocked harder doors than this. And I wasn't done yet. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, flashes of the confrontation replayed. The way Layla's voice rose, the looks from the neighbors, the phone call on speaker, the text she'd sent afterward like a warning shot. I kept waking up with my heart thudding against my ribs, as if my body was trying to shake loose the humiliation still clinging to me. By morning, though, something steadier took its place. Not anger, clarity. A kind of quiet resolve I hadn't felt in years. The sort you develop after decades of life teaching you that some storms require you to stand still until they pass, while others demand you move right through them. Adam arrived at my place at 9 sharp. He looked exhausted but more focused than the night before. He had the chipped mug with him, wrapped carefully in a dish towel. When I opened the door, he held it out like it was something fragile. Not the mug, but the moment between us. Thought you might want this back, he said. I shook my head. No. Keep it for now. I'll explain later. He didn't argue. Instead, he glanced past me at the small kitchen where I'd set out 2 mugs and a kettle that had been keeping warm. You made chamomile, he said softly. Helps keep the nerves steady, I replied. He sat down at the table while I poured. For a moment we said nothing. Then he asked, Are you ready? I stirred a little honey into his cup. I'm not sure anyone ever feels ready for something like this. But I'm willing. We drove to the charity office, a converted 2-story house near the edge of town, with the morning sun barely warming the frost on the lawns. I'd volunteered there for 10 years, handling everything from event organizing to basic bookkeeping. Never once had I been questioned about my integrity. Until now. Inside, the board treasurer, Mrs. Raleigh, greeted us with an expression that hovered between concern and confusion. She was in her 70s, stern-faced but kind underneath, the sort of woman who always spoke plainly. Morning, she said. You two asked for an urgent meeting? Yes, Adam answered before I could. It's about the audit. She frowned. Audit? We're not under audit. We filed our quarterly review last week. I exchanged a look with Adam. He inhaled sharply. Layla told me there was an audit due to irregularities. Mrs. Raleigh blinked. Irregularities caused by missing receipts. Ones your wife claimed she was trying to locate. A cold ripple traveled down my spine. Missing receipts? She said they were misplaced. The treasurer continued. And that you, she turned toward me, felt responsible but were overwhelmed. She said you'd mixed up files while sorting cabinet boxes. My breath caught. I never told her that. I know, she said calmly. I didn't believe it was like you to lose track of things, but I didn't want to accuse anyone. People make mistakes. Adam's jaw tightened. Did she turn in the ledger? Yes, she dropped it off 2 weeks ago. I felt my pulse quicken. May I see it? The treasurer retrieved the book from a drawer. It was the same ledger I'd used for years, navy cover, pages slightly yellowed, my handwriting neat but faint in places. But the moment I opened it, certain things jumped out at me that did not belong. Numbers changed, totals scratched out, asterisks beside entries that never originally had them. And there on page 9 the little swirling margin doodles. My stomach twisted. These aren't mine. Mrs. Raleigh adjusted her glasses. I noticed the doodles right away. When I asked your daughter-in-law about them, She said they were your way of marking sections you wanted to revisit. Adam looked like he was going to be sick. She lied. Quietly, the treasurer said, "Yes, I'm afraid she did." I traced the doodles with a finger, the loops and curls mocking in their playfulness. They looked like something drawn absent-mindedly during a phone call, maybe the same kind she'd been on yesterday. "What doesn't make sense," I murmured, "is why she'd do this at all." "She said she wanted to help," the treasurer replied. "Said you've been struggling with your eyesight and asked if she could double-check totals." She hesitated. "Is that true?" "No," I said firmly. "My eyesight is just fine." Adam looked at me, a mixture of guilt and something like helplessness in his eyes. "Mom, why didn't you tell me she asked to take this?" "Because she framed it as helping me," I said softly. "I thought she was trying to be included, to share responsibility." Mrs. Raleigh pursed her lips. "If these numbers were altered intentionally, that's a very serious issue. We might have to revisit the filings." Adam leaned forward. "Do you have the original receipts?" "Before anyone touched them." The treasurer nodded. "I scanned everything digitally before handing the ledger to your wife. It's standard practice now." My heart startled. "So we can compare." Her brows lifted. "Yes, I suppose we can." She pulled up the scanned files on her computer. As she clicked through them, my breath caught again and again. Numbers matched perfectly with my original notations, but not with the new entries in the ledger. Adam pointed. These 2 pages. She increased the totals by nearly $3,000. "And removed 2 receipt entries entirely," I added, "which would make me look like I miscounted again." The treasurer turned toward us slowly. This was deliberate. My throat tightened. Hearing someone else say it aloud hit harder than I expected. Adam asked quietly, "Was the board planning to confront my mother?" "We were planning to ask her to re-verify the numbers," the treasurer said. "But your wife insisted she would handle it. She said your mother was too embarrassed and didn't want the attention." Embarrassed. That word stung more than any other, because Layla knew it was my weakest spot. My desire not to be a burden, not to cause conflict, not to draw negative attention. She'd weaponized the very thing I tried hardest to avoid. "She did all this," Adam said, voice low, "so she could put my mother in the crosshairs. And cover her own tracks," I added. Mrs. Raleigh folded her hands. "There is one more thing. Your wife asked me to sign off on a corrective memo she drafted. I didn't sign it yet." My pulse quickened. A corrective memo? She wrote that the ledger errors stemmed from volunteer handling. She wanted to file it before the quarter closed. My mouth went dry. That would have gone on record. "Yes. And it would have assigned responsibility to you," she said gently. Adam's face darkened. "She tried to frame my mother." The treasurer nodded once. I felt a shaking sensation start in my hands and travel up my arms. Not fear, something else. A realization I hadn't wanted to consider, but now couldn't ignore. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't stress. It wasn't panic. This was intent. Quiet, calculating intent. Adam looked at me pained. "Mom, how long has she been doing things like this? Making you doubt yourself?" I thought back. Missed invitations, unanswered messages, subtle digs about my memory. Reminders that I was getting older and should let the younger ones handle things. Too many moments clicked together like puzzle pieces snapping into place. "A while," I whispered. He closed his eyes and swore under his breath. "I'm so sorry." I placed a hand on his. "It's not your fault." But the treasurer interrupted gently. "You should know. If your wife altered these records intentionally, we're required to report it. There could be an investigation." Adam nodded slowly. "We understand." My heart thudded. Not out of fear for myself, but because I realized what this might mean for Adam's marriage. We stepped outside shortly after, the cold air biting at our faces. Adam paced in a tight circle near the walkway, hands on his hips. "She betrayed all of us," he said, voice cracking. "Not just you. Me too." I nodded, though the ache in my chest wasn't triumph. It was sorrow. Sorrow for my son, for what this revelation might do to his life. But before I could speak, his phone buzzed. He read the message, his expression shifting into something grim. It's her, he said. Layla had sent one line. Since you took her side, I'm telling the board everything. You won't like my version. A cold breeze swept across my face. Adam looked at me. She's doubling down. Yes, she was. But she didn't know something crucial. Something I hadn't told Adam yet. Something that would change the course of everything. A detail I had noticed in the ledger weeks before, one I'd dismissed as nothing. A detail she had overlooked, thinking I'd never catch it. I drew a slow breath. Adam, before this gets worse, I need to show you something. He frowned. What is it? I reached into my purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. A copy of a page I had made weeks earlier when something had bothered me, though I couldn't articulate why at the time. A hunch, a tug, a whisper of instinct. A page with a date that didn't exist when Layla claimed she took the ledger. A timestamp. Proof. And suddenly, the path ahead became very, very clear. I didn't unfold the paper right away. We sat in the car with the heater blowing weakly against the morning chill. Adam staring at me like the world had tilted just enough to make him dizzy. Mom, he finally said. What's on that page? I held the folded copy in my hands for a long moment, smoothing its creases with my thumb. My fingers trembled, not from fear but from the weight of what this represented. Proof mattered. Proof changed stories. Proof cleared names. And for people like Layla, people who relied on confusion, misdirection, and polished confidence, proof was the one thing they couldn't talk their way around. You'll understand better if I explain from the beginning, I said quietly. Adam nodded, bracing himself. 3 weeks ago, I began. I went to file the receipts and ledger numbers for the charity's autumn dinner drive. Nothing unusual. But when I got home, I realized a page from the ledger had a different texture than the others. Slightly smoother. It wasn't obvious but enough that I noticed. He frowned. A different page? Yes, I said. It felt out of place. So I photocopied it. Just a habit from my old office days. I like keeping backups when something seems strange. I looked down at the paper in my lap. I didn't think much more of it. I tucked the copy into my drawer and forgot about it. Until today, he said quietly. Until today, I echoed. I unfolded the page. It wasn't the entire ledger sheet, just the lower half with the entries for 2 expense categories. My handwritten numbers were there, faded but neat. But next to them in a different pen were additional notations. Notations that didn't match the ink I'd been using that month. And on the bottom corner of the page, something tiny that most people would miss. A faint, almost invisible gray timestamp from the copier's default margin setting. Dated 4 days after Layla had taken the ledger for the weekend. Adam's eyes widened. She copied it. Yes, I said. Which means she had access to the ledger after she claimed she returned it. Or she had the page pulled separately. Either way, she was altering things long before she claimed the mistakes were mine. He stared at it, jaw tightening. This is huge. It's something the board will take seriously, I said. Dates matter when paperwork is concerned. If she was supposed to have returned it by the Monday, but a page was recopied on Thursday, I let the implication finish itself. She was tampering with records, he said. Actively. We drove in silence for a moment as the weight of everything settled between us. Finally Adam whispered, Mom, she's in deep trouble. And so are you, I said gently, emotionally at least. He swallowed hard. I don't even know what we are anymore. I touched his arm. You don't have to know today. But his eyes clouded. She lied to me about my own mother. And I believed her enough that it hurt you. How do you come back from that? He looked out the windshield, voice thin. How do you trust someone after they try to ruin the one person who raised you? I didn't answer. Some questions aren't meant to be solved in a morning. They're meant to echo until the truth reveals itself. Adam wasn't ready to face that truth yet, but it was moving toward him all the same. He shook himself back to the moment. We need to take this to the board. Yes, I said. But first we need to understand the full scope. What exactly is she afraid the audit will show?
Adam hesitated.
Mom, there's something I didn't want to tell you yesterday, but you need to know. My stomach tightened. Go on. When she and I bought the house, he said slowly, we took out a second line of credit. Nothing huge, just something for renovations. He ran his hand through his hair. A few months later, she said she'd used part of it to invest in a friend's online business. She said it wasn't much and that she'd pay it back. I took a breath. Did she? No, his voice was flat. And yesterday, when she snapped at me before leaving for her sister's, she said something that suddenly makes more sense. She yelled, "You act like you never made financial mistakes. At least I'm trying to fix mine." A chill rippled through me. You think she? I think she used charity money to cover what she lost. He buried his face in his hands. And she needed someone to blame so the board wouldn't dig deeper. I stared at him. The pieces clicked into place too cleanly. This wasn't sloppy panic. This was a cover-up.
Adam whispered.
If that's true, it's not just unethical. It's criminal. I know, he said, voice cracking. And I married her. For a long moment, he just sat there, breathing unevenly, the weight of his marriage pressing down like a concrete slab he couldn't lift. I reached over, touched his shoulder. You didn't cause this. She did. He nodded but didn't look convinced. A knock on his car window startled both of us. We turned to see a woman from the charity board, Lorna, bundled in a gray coat and holding a clipboard. Her breath puffed visibly in the cold. Sorry to interrupt, she said when Adam rolled down the window. But I saw your car and wanted to check something.
Adam streikten.
Of course. What is it? She held up a printed email. We received a message from your wife this morning. The one where she blamed your mother again. But something in it didn't add up. I felt my pulse quicken. What is it? Lorna lowered her voice. She said the incorrect totals were from the September event, but the September event was fully digital.
No handwritten ledger.
Everything was processed online. My breath caught. Adam leaned in. So she blamed her for errors on an event she didn't even handle? Lorna nodded gravely. Exactly. And the board is now wondering why your wife is trying so hard to place fault where there clearly is none. My heart hammered. This was unraveling faster than I anticipated. Also, Lorna added, we checked the building's doorbell camera from the week your wife claimed she returned the ledger. She came on Monday, yes. But she came again late Thursday evening. She raised an eyebrow. After hours.
Adam ihalet şerpli.
That lines up with the timestamp on the page. I held up the paper. Lorna's eyes widened. Where did you get that? I copied it the day I noticed something off, I said, before anyone asked questions. She stared at it, then at me with something like awe. You may have just saved this charity from months of chaos. I shook my head. I was just following a feeling. A good feeling, she said firmly. She tapped her clipboard lightly. We're calling an emergency board meeting tonight. You and your mother should attend.
Adam nodded.
We'll be there. After she left, Adam leaned back in his seat, eyes closed. Relief, fury, guilt, and heartbreak played across his face like storm clouds shifting. I can't believe she dragged you into this, he whispered. I can, I said softly. People who lie rarely stop at one lie. He swallowed. Mom, what if this ends my marriage? I looked at him with the steady calm only time and experience can give. Sweetheart, I said. Your marriage ended the moment she decided her survival mattered more than your truth. He pressed his forehead into his hands, silently crying in a way that broke something inside me. Not because he was crying but because he was finally seeing clearly. After a long moment, he wiped his face and looked at me with a new determination. Tonight, we tell the board everything. Yes, I said. But as we drove home, neither of us realized something crucial. Layla wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. And she was already preparing her next move, one she believed would silence me permanently. She didn't know yet that the one thing I'd never lost, not once in my 63 years, was the ability to see the truth hiding in plain sight. And she couldn't hide much longer. I spent the rest of the afternoon pacing my living room, unable to settle. Every time I tried to sit, my mind replayed the text Layla had sent Adam. You won't like my version. It stuck to my ribs like something sour. People like Layla didn't back down, they doubled down. They twisted things until truth bent in their favor, until everybody doubted themselves. But now she was cornered. Cornered people can be dangerous. At 5:30, Adam picked me up for the emergency board meeting. He looked steadier than before, like he'd spent the afternoon assembling whatever pieces of himself had cracked. But he also looked older, tired, like reality had added 10 years to his face in a single day. "Ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be," I said. He nodded and helped me into the car. The small gesture, the way he placed a hand on my back, not rushing me, not distracted, felt like the Adam I'd raised. The boy who used to hold my hand crossing the street and glance up to make sure I was safe. It soothed something in me. The charity building glowed warm against the cold evening. Through the windows I could see silhouettes moving inside the board gathering. My stomach knotted. I wasn't afraid of them. I'd known most of them for years. I was afraid of the humiliation resurfacing. Being questioned. Being doubted. Being made to feel small. But Adam reached for my hand before we walked in. "We're doing this together," he said. I nodded and stepped inside. 7 board members sat around the long oak table. A few looked concerned. A few looked tired. And one, Mr. Redmond, the chairman, looked outright irritated, though not at me. At the far end of the table sat someone I didn't expect. Layla. She was dressed smartly, hair neatly pinned, wearing a pearl bracelet I'd given her the first Christmas they were married. It glowed against her wrist like a lie dressed as something elegant. My chest tightened. Adam stiffened beside me. "You weren't invited." She lifted her chin. "I was told you were accusing me of falsifying records. I have every right to defend myself." Her voice was cool, measured. Nothing like the woman who'd screamed at me on the porch. She'd rehearsed. "Please sit," Mr. Redmond said, gesturing to 2 empty chairs. "We need to get to the bottom of this." We took our seats. The room felt too quiet, like everyone was poised at the edge of something sharp. Layla leaned back slightly, her fingers brushing the bracelet, her eyes fixed on me. "Before we start," she said sweetly, "I think we should remember that misunderstandings happen, especially when people get older." The jab hit its mark. I felt heat rise in my cheeks.
Adam inhalet şerpli.
"Don't do that." One of the board members, a younger man named Kent, cleared his throat. "Mrs. Whitman," he nodded at me, "we'd like to hear your version first." I swallowed and pulled the folded copy from my purse. 3 weeks ago, I copied this page from the ledger because something felt off. I handed it to him. He scanned it, then passed it to the others. "This page," I continued, "shows my original entries, but the copy contains a timestamp printed by the copier." I pointed. "Dated 4 days after Layla claimed she returned the ledger." Murmurs rippled around the table. Layla shifted, but her expression didn't crack. "That proves nothing. She could have copied it herself a week later." "Except," Adam said, "the original ledger page," he nodded to the book sitting in front of the chairman, "has been altered to match totals that didn't exist at the time." "That isn't true," Layla snapped. "Your mother's handwriting is sloppy. Anyone could mistake one number for another." My pulse hammered. "Then why did you tell the board I admitted mixing up receipts?" She didn't blink. "Because you did." "I didn't," I said firmly. "You forget things all the time," she said, voice dripping with mock concern. "It's not your fault." Adam slammed his hand on the table. "Enough." The room fell silent. He looked directly at her. "Stop treating my mother like she's senile. She's sharper than both of us combined." Layla's face twisted, but she quickly smoothed it. Mr. Redmond held up the ledger. "The handwriting changes are obvious. These darker entries," he pointed, "weren't made with the same pen or pressure as the original." He turned to her. "Why did you alter them?" "I didn't," she said flatly. "We also reviewed the doorbell camera." Another board member added. "You returned the ledger Monday morning, but you came back late Thursday evening. After hours." Layla's jaw tightened. "That doesn't prove." "It proves opportunity," the treasurer cut in. "And motive," Kent added quietly. Layla's eyes flashed. "Are you all seriously siding with her? She's been disorganized for months." I stepped in to help because she was drowning. I felt something inside me snap, not from anger, but from years of letting myself be spoken over. Years of being polite to keep peace. "I wasn't drowning," I said softly. "I was trusting you." Her mouth closed hard. I continued, voice steadier than I expected. You asked to take the ledger because you said I'd done enough. You said you wanted to help. You said I should rest. And then you told everyone I was confused, that I misplaced things, that I needed to be protected from my own mistakes. Emotion thickened in my throat. You made me doubt myself. For the first time that evening, something flickered in Layla's expression, surprise, maybe even fear. She hadn't expected me to speak plainly. She never had. Adam squeezed my hand under the table. Mr. Redmond cleared his throat. Mrs. Carter, he addressed Layla. You told us the September totals were incorrect. She nodded stiffly. Yes. Her math was off. September was digital, he said.
No handwritten entries.
No ledger. She froze. The room went dead silent. I must have misremembered, she stammered. No, Lorna said. You lied. And not well. Layla shot to her feet. This is absurd. You're all ganging up on me because she jabbed a finger toward me. Can't keep up anymore. Even the board members who'd stayed neutral until now recoiled. Adam stood too, voice low but sharp. Sit down. She didn't. Sit down, he repeated. His tone made everyone still. Layla's face reddened, but she slowly lowered herself back into her chair. Mrs. Carter, Mr. Redmond said, voice controlled. Based on the evidence, the altered numbers, the timestamp discrepancy, the false report about September, we must consider intentional falsification. Her eyes widened. You're accusing me of theft? We're accusing you of altering charity records, he said, which will require formal review. She went pale. You can't do that, she whispered. But they could. And they would. She turned toward Adam, her voice trembling. You're really letting them do this to me? Adam stared at her, and something in him shifted, hardened. You did this, he said quietly. Not my mother. Not the board. You. She shook her head violently. No. No, you don't understand. If they report this. She stopped suddenly, words catching like they'd snagged on something sharp. What?
Adam demanded.
If they report this, then what? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Because her phone buzzed on the table, lighting up with a notification. And the preview line made my heart drop into my stomach. From a contact labeled, Trevor LLC. We need the rest of the money by Friday. Layla lunged for the phone, but Kent snatched it first. Silence swallowed the room. Adam stared at her like she'd become someone he couldn't recognize. Layla, he said quietly. What money? She shook her head, eyes filling. Adam, please. What money? He pressed. Her hands trembled. I can fix it. I just need. But she didn't get to finish. Because Mr. Redmond leaned back, exhaled sharply, and said words that split the entire night apart. Mrs. Carter, until this is resolved, you are suspended from all charity involvement. And we will be filing a preliminary report. Layla's face crumpled. Not in remorse but in panic.
Pure, disperate panic.
She grabbed her phone, shoved past two board members and rushed out the door, slamming it behind her. No one spoke for several seconds. Finally, Kent whispered. What on earth was she involved in? Adam stared at the closed door, voice nearly breaking. Something that almost ruined my mother to cover her tracks. I exhaled, shaky, my heart pounding. But the night wasn't done. Not even close. Because as we left the meeting, Adam's phone rang. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. A woman's voice, thin, nervous, came through the speaker. Is this Adam Carter? I'm calling about your wife. And the money she owes us.
Adam froze.
And I realized. The phone call wasn't just exposing Layla. It was about to expose everything. Adam didn't speak at first. He just stared ahead at the charity building as if the bricks themselves might explain the voice on the phone. I moved one step closer to him, partly for my own balance, partly because I could feel something in him teetering. This is Adam, he finally said, voice low. The woman on the other end exhaled shakily, as if relieved she'd reached him. My name is Danielle Maldonado. I'm with Harborline Accounts Recovery. We've been trying to reach your wife regarding her outstanding balance. Adam's jaw clenched. What balance? A pause. Then delicately, the sum totals to $12,600. Adam sucked in a breath as if he'd been punched. I felt something cold slide down my spine. Meanwhile, Danielle continued tentatively. We were informed there was a scheduled payment plan, but the last 2 payments bounced. We were instructed to call her emergency contact if the situation became urgent. Emergency contact. My son. The woman kept talking, voice rushed. I don't mean to intrude, sir, but Miss Carter said the delay was due to a temporary accounting issue with the charity she helps manage. We were told additional funds were expected soon from a reconcilement on your mother's end. My body froze. On my end, Danielle added. We attempted earlier to confirm details with the nonprofit directly, but, Adam snapped. Stop. Please. Another pause. Of course. He swallowed so hard I saw his throat tremble. My wife no longer represents the charity in any capacity, and she will not be using my mother to cover her debts. Do you understand? Yes, sir. The woman's voice softened. Based on your reaction, I'm guessing she hasn't told you much. Not nearly enough. Adam's voice cracked. What was this money for? When she applied, Danielle said carefully, she listed it as capital for a small online resale business she was starting with a partner. But I can send you the full paperwork if... No, Adam said firmly. Send me nothing. Do not contact my mother again. And do not contact the charity. All communication goes through me now. Understood. He hung up before she could say more. For a moment we stood in the quiet parking lot, bathed in the yellow glow of street lamps, the cold pressing against our cheeks. Adam's breathing grew ragged, like he'd been holding himself together with thread and the last knot had just snapped. 12,000, he whispered. Mom, she never told me. I didn't touch him at first, I knew that look. The look of a man who suddenly realizes the person he'd been loving was also the person dismantling him piece by piece. He needed the moment to break without an audience. But then he sagged forward, elbows braced on his knees, breath coming fast. That's when I placed a hand gently on his back. Not a comforting touch, just one that told him he wasn't alone. She lied to me, he said in a strangled voice. About everything. I nodded quietly. Yes. She used the charity, he said, voice raw. And she tried to use you. She was trying to funnel money through your department because it wouldn't set off alerts. She thought if you looked like the one who miscounted, no one would question her corrections. I closed my eyes. I know. He looked up at me suddenly, eyes shining with something painful. Mom, did you think you were losing your memory? Did you think you were making mistakes? The question cracked something inside me. Yes, I whispered. She made me think so. Adam pressed his fist to his mouth to keep from breaking. He turned slightly, leaning against the side of the car as if his legs couldn't support him. Mom, he said, voice shaking. I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. I should have. Stop. I squeezed his shoulder. This isn't your fault. He breathed deeply, trying to steady himself. We need to go home. But when we pulled into his driveway, something was wrong. A light glowed in the living room. One that hadn't been on earlier. The curtains twitched. A silhouette moved inside. Adam s'était finet. She's back. A chill ran through me. We got out of the car cautiously, and he opened the door slowly. Layla sat on the couch, shoulders heaving, mascara streaked like dark rivers down her face. She'd been crying for a long time. But the moment she saw us, her expression hardened. You ruined me, she spat at Adam, voice hoarse. He stepped inside, calm but tense. No. You ruined yourself. You told them everything, she screamed. Now they're talking about reporting me. Do you know what that means? Do you know what this could do to my job? To my life? Adam stared at her. Do you know what you could have done to my mother's life? She stood abruptly. I never meant for it to go this far. That's the problem, he said quietly. You never think beyond yourself. You think I wanted to feel desperate? You think I wanted to borrow money? I did it for us. No, Adam said. You did it for you. Her lip trembled. I was going to put the money back. I just needed time. You were forging documents. Adam shouted. You were ready to let them blame my mother. Because she already thinks I'm a villain. Layla snapped. Everything your mother does is perfect, but I'm always the one wrong. I'm always the outsider. I stepped forward. You aren't an outsider. You created this. She whirled toward me, eyes blazing. You inserted yourself where you didn't belong. I was fixing things. How? I asked softly. By lying? By stealing? By humiliating me in front of the entire neighborhood. Her face twisted. I didn't humiliate you. You embarrassed yourself. Showing up with your sentimental garbage and acting like you get to stroll into our home whenever you want. Adam slammed a hand against the table. Enough. You don't get to talk to her like that. She stared at him as if seeing him for the first time. You're choosing her over me. Adam didn't flinch. I'm choosing truth over lies. A stillness filled the room. Sharp, cold, decisive. Layla's breathing quickened. I can fix this, she whispered. I'll make another statement. I'll tell the board you misunderstood. They can't prove the numbers weren't mistakes. They can, I said quietly. Doorbell camera. Time-stamped page. Your emails. She froze. And, Adam added slowly, the phone call tonight. The one about the money you owe. Her face drained of color. You weren't supposed to answer that. Adam folded his arms. But I did. Layla stumbled back, her shoulders shaking. Adam, please. If this goes to court, if charges are filed, I could lose everything. And you were willing to let my mother lose everything instead? He asked. Silence. Then she whispered something that chilled me more than anything else that night. She's stronger. She can handle it. I felt my knees weaken. Adam's face twisted with disbelief. You really believed that? I knew she wouldn't fight back, Layla said quietly. She never does. Adam stepped back from her, not with anger, but with clarity. I want you to leave, he said. She blinked. Adam. Pack a bag and go to your sister's, he said firmly. Tonight. Her expression shattered. You're kicking me out? No, he said. You're walking out. Because you crossed a line you can't come back from. She looked at me then. Eyes filled with hatred, not remorse. This is your fault, she spat. You couldn't just stay quiet. I met her stare evenly. I stayed quiet long enough. She grabbed her purse, stormed down the hall, and slammed the bedroom door. Adam exhaled shakily and leaned against the wall, covering his face with both hands. It felt like the house itself exhaled with him, as if it had been holding its breath through the lies. But the night had one more twist left. Because as Layla pulled out of the driveway 20 minutes later, speeding away without looking back, Adam's phone buzzed again. This time from a number he'd never seen before. A soft voice left a single voicemail. Mr. Carter, this is about Layla. You need to call me back. It's important. I have information you should hear about what she did and what she planned to do next. Adam stared at the voicemail notification as if it were a live grenade. The house felt hollow after Layla's departure. Rooms too quiet, lights too bright. A stillness that came not from peace but from shock. My heart ached for my son, yet something in me stayed alert. People who lie as easily as breathing rarely walk away cleanly. There was always another layer. Play it, I said softly. Adam hesitated only a moment before tapping the message. A woman's voice, slightly muffled by nerves, filled the room. Mr. Carter, I don't want to be involved, but I can't stay quiet anymore. Your wife, Layla, she came to me 2 weeks ago. She said she needed help reallocating charity funds discreetly. I refused, but she threatened to accuse me of misconduct. I didn't know what to do. Please call me. The voicemail ended. We stood frozen in the glow of the kitchen light. The kettle on my counter clicked quietly as it cooled. Somewhere outside, a dog barked once before silence settled again. Adam Slalohet. She threatened a board member? That wasn't a board member, I said. Listen again. He replayed it. And then it clicked. That's Erin, he said, recognition dawning. She's part-time admin, helps with filing. She's barely 23. My chest tightened. Layla targeted her because she's young. Easy to intimidate. Adam scrubbed his hands over his face. How did I not see this? How did I not see who she was? I rested a hand on his arm. Because you loved her. And love can blur sharp edges until they cut. He exhaled shakily, shoulders dropping as if gravity itself had grown heavier. She wasn't just falsifying records, he whispered. She was recruiting people. And coercing them, I added. The difference matters. He sighed, defeated. We need to call her back. We do. But before he could dial, headlights swept across the front window. Adam stiffened, instinctively stepping in front of me. But when the car door opened, the silhouette wasn't Layla. It was a familiar one. Erin herself. Her small sedan rolled to a stop behind Adam's truck, and she stepped onto the driveway, clutching a manila folder to her chest like a shield. Her breaths fogged the air. She was shaking even from a distance. Adam opened the door. Erin. She flinched. I'm sorry for coming here. I didn't know how else to. It's all right, he said. Kumain. I offered her a seat at the kitchen table and poured a warm cup of tea for her hands, which trembled so badly she nearly spilled. I shouldn't be here, she said. I couldn't keep this to myself anymore. You did the right thing, I assured her. She took a shaky breath. 2 weeks ago, Layla called me into the office on a Sunday, said she just needed help rearranging some receipts. But when I got there, she had the ledger open on her lap and printed copies spread out. She told me to restamp some dates and clean up inconsistencies. Adam's voice tightened. Did you? No, she said quickly. I told her it wasn't allowed. So she leaned in close and said, You're on a probationary contract. 1 word from me and you're done. My stomach turned. I panicked, Erin continued. I left, but she called me the next day. Said she'd tell the board I messed with the filing if I didn't help. That's when she blamed my mother, Adam muttered. She needed a backup target. Erin nodded. She wanted a scapegoat in case the numbers got audited. And she said your mother, she looked at me with apologetic eyes, was the perfect candidate because no one would question it. I felt something inside me twist. Not pain. Not fear. Something sharper. Why come forward now? I asked gently. Erin looked at the door as if expecting someone to burst through it. Because I overheard her on the phone earlier tonight, around 7. She was yelling that everything fell apart, that she had to finish the job before anyone traced the changes back to her. Adam's head snapped up. Finish the job. Erin flinched. I don't know what she meant, but she said your mother was the only loose end left. A cold shiver crawled up my spine. Adam's face drained of color. She meant you, Mom. Erin fumbled with the manila folder. There's more. I brought the original digital copies of every receipt she asked me to resort. I don't want the board thinking I joined her scheme. She slid the folder across the table with shaky hands. Inside were printed screenshots, timestamps, original totals, unedited entries. Proof. Solid, undeniable proof. Adam leafed through the pages, eyes widening. This is everything we need. Yes, Erin whispered. But you need to be careful. She looked unstable before she left the office, like she was scared and angry enough to do something reckless. I felt the room tilt slightly, not from fear, but from recognition. I'd seen that look on Layla earlier, the one she gave me after Adam told her to leave, the one filled with a burning flicker of revenge. Adam reached for his phone. I'm calling the police. Wait, I said. On what grounds? He froze mid-dial. Threats. Fraud. Harassment. Pick one. But none of them happened in front of authorities, I said gently. They won't act yet. Erin swallowed. She said something else. Something about paperwork. She mentioned a hidden clause. Does that mean anything to you? Adam frowned. Hidden clause? Then his expression shifted, slowly, like a puzzle piece sliding into place. The house, he whispered. The mortgage agreement. A chill washed over me. What about it? I asked. When we refinanced, he said slowly. She insisted on handling the paperwork. Said her cousin worked in lending. I barely looked at it. His eyes widened. I remember one page I didn't recognize. She said it was a standard occupancy clause. And wasn't it? I asked. He shook his head. Mom, occupancy clauses usually protect lenders. But she said it protected us. I thought nothing of it. What if it protects her? Erin whispered. Adam ran to the hall drawer and yanked out a thick folder. Papers scattered across the table as he flipped frantically through them, until he found it. A section highlighted in blue. Primary resident must remain in occupancy to maintain right of residency transfer eligibility. My blood chilled. Right of residency transfer? I echoed. Adam's lips parted in horror. If I left the house, even temporarily, she could claim primary residency. And lock you out, Aaron finished quietly. And claim the equity, I added. Adam stared at the clause numb. She planned this, he whispered. I touched his arm. Not just the charity. Not just the money. Everything. His voice cracked. She was setting me up. And using you as the fall guy. Because I wouldn't fight back, I murmured. The truth sat heavily between us. But the worst wasn't over. Because just as Adam's knees buckled into a chair, headlights swept across the driveway again, slow this time, deliberate. And then, a shadow moved past the window. Adam stiffened. Aaron gasped. And I felt every hair on my arms rise as the doorbell rang. Once. Twice. Then a third time, slow deliberate presses. Adam stood, his face steeled but pale. Mom, he murmured, stepping ahead of me. Stay behind me. But I already knew who it was. The woman whose lies had finally collapsed. The woman who'd been cornered. The woman who believed I was the only loose end left. And she had come back. Adam approached the door slowly, shoulders squared, breath tight. Aaron stood behind him, clutching the manila folder like a life preserver. I stayed back a step, though every instinct in me, a lifetime of mothering, worrying, absorbing blows silently, pushed me forward. But this wasn't a moment for softness. This was a moment for truth. Adam looked through the peephole. His jaw clenched. It's her, he whispered. Of course it was. Layla pressed the doorbell a fourth time, longer, harder. The chime echoed down the hall like a warning siren. Should we call the police? Aaron whispered. Not yet, I said softly. If she's here as a threat, the conversation will show it. Adam exhaled shakily and unlocked the door, but opened it only a few inches. What do you want? He asked. Layla pushed against the door immediately. Adam held firm. I need to talk to you, she said, voice trembling with adrenaline. You shouldn't be here. She ignored him and turned her gaze toward me, sharp, angry, wild. I need to talk to her. Adam blocked her sightline with his body. No. You say whatever you need to say from there. She swallowed hard, then locked eyes with him, her voice cracking. They're going to investigate me, she whispered. Do you understand what that means? I'll lose my job. I'll lose everything. And it's all because of your mother. There it was again. Blame. Always blame. Adam's voice remained calm. Too calm. Layla, you lied. You altered records. You tried to frame people. You made those choices. She glared at me over his shoulder. I made them because she kept interfering. She never liked me. She sabotaged everything I tried to fix. I stepped forward so I could be seen. Fix? Is that what you call it? Layla flinched but kept going. If you had just stayed quiet just once, none of this would be happening. I felt a stillness inside me, a clarity born not from anger, but from exhaustion. I stayed quiet while you erased me. I stayed quiet while you lied about me. I stayed quiet while you humiliated me in front of my neighbors. That wasn't silence. That was survival. Her eyes filled with panic, and something darker. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to protect myself. And Adam. And our future. Adam shook his head. Protecting your future doesn't mean destroying someone else's. Her eyes hardened and she dropped her voice. You don't know everything.
Adam tenset.
Then tell me. She hesitated only a fraction of a second. Then, I lost the business money. We all froze. I put it into a wholesale dropshipping partnership. Trevor, he said it was foolproof. Said the returns would cover everything in a month. But it collapsed. And I panicked. I thought if I could just move some money around, make the numbers match. She exhaled hard. I could buy us time. And blaming my mother fit nicely into that plan? Adam said tightly. She made it easy, Layla shot back. She's always hovering, always checking on you, always. She's my mother, he snapped. And I'm your wife. Who tried to frame her? He said quietly. A sudden gust of cold air swept into the house as Layla pushed the door open another inch. Adam steadied it before she could force her way in. She tried again, her voice rising. You don't get it. If they prosecute me, I could go to jail. And if I go to jail, I lose everything. My job. My car. This house. Adam's voice sharpened. This is my house. Her face twisted. Actually. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded document, shaking with fury. Actually, it isn't.
Adam froze.
What are you talking about? She slammed the document against the doorframe so he could read it through the crack. I felt dread coil in my stomach. It was the hidden clause. Highlighted. Bolded. Weaponized. Primary resident must remain on premises to maintain right of residency transfer eligibility. She read aloud, voice trembling with triumph. You left tonight. You stayed with her. You forfeited the clause. The house defaults to me. Adam's blood ran cold. I felt it in the air. That was her plan. Her final card. You tricked me into letting you handle the paperwork, he whispered. Yes, she said, unapologetic. Because I knew if things ever got bad enough I needed protection. And now I have it. So you're stealing the house? He asked, disbelief choking his words. I'm claiming what I'm entitled to, she snapped. You abandoned the residency clause tonight when you left. So legally, it's mine. The cruelty of the move wasn't loud. It was precise, calculated, cold. But before Adam could respond, Erin stepped forward, voice surprisingly steady. No, she said. It isn't. Layla turned stunned. Who are you? The person you tried to threaten, Erin said. And the person who reported your intimidation to the charity HR hotline an hour ago. Layla's face drained of color. Erin held up the manila folder. And I'm also the person who printed these records showing you removed the occupancy clause's original footnote. Adam blinked. Footnote. Erin nodded. Yes. The clause only transfers if both parties vacate the premises. Not one. Both. It's a two-party protection clause in case of disaster relocation. You truncated the bottom half of the page when you submitted your version. She handed the board copy to Adam. His jaw tightened. Layla looked from him to Erin to me. Realization dawning like a sinking ship. No, she whispered. You're lying. Erin shook her head. No. You did. And you got caught. I felt breath return to the room. Slow. Steady. Layla staggered back. I didn't know. Adam's voice was calm. Calm in the way storms sometimes are before lightning hits. Layla, you need to leave. Now. She shook her head violently. Adam, please. He shook his head. No. You used me. You hurt my mother. You committed fraud. And you tried to steal our home. She stepped closer to the door, eyes frantic. We can fix it. We can delete the files. We can talk to the board. You already tried that, I said quietly. Tonight. And last week. And the week before. This is the end of that road. She stared at me with a strange mixture of hatred and desperation. Then her expression collapsed. She turned and ran down the walkway, tripping once before reaching her car. She slammed the door, engine roaring to life, and sped off into the night. For a long moment, none of us spoke. Then Adam exhaled a shuddering breath. Mom. Erin, thank you. Erin wiped her eyes. I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because she scared me. And because no one should be blamed for telling the truth. Adam nodded. Then he stepped toward me, slowly, as if afraid I might break, and pulled me into a tight embrace. I'm so sorry, he whispered into my shoulder. For ever doubting you. For letting her twist things. For making you feel small. Tears pricked my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. You didn't make me feel small, I said gently. She tried. You didn't. He pulled back, wiping his eyes. We'll fix this. All of it. Together. Erin nodded, clutching her coat. I should go. But if you need anything for the investigation, you can call me. Thank you, I said. After she left, Adam locked the door and sagged against it, eyes closing. It's over, he whispered. Not fully, I said. There will be paperwork, hearings. Maybe more. He nodded slowly. But the worst part, the lies, That's over. I touched his cheek. Truth doesn't need volume. Only clarity. He smiled faintly, the first genuine smile in days. Mom, he murmured. You're stronger than anyone I know. I shook my head softly. I just finally stopped staying quiet. We sat together at the kitchen table until midnight, talking, breathing, letting the air clear itself of months of tension. When he finally left to rest in the guest room, I remained awake a little longer, watching the brass key on my keyring glint under the overhead light. A key to a home I no longer lived in. A home that almost became a weapon. A home that would now be reclaimed, not by force but by truth. And truth, once awake, never goes back to sleep.